little grease for that O-ring. This morning we're going to do a leak down test. Buy your leak down tester. You can buy this off the internet. You can Google it. This is a US General Cylinder leak down tester. This is from Harbor Freight. Comes with what you see here. A couple different style plugs, the actual tester, the arm, and the plugs you can switch out on it, the sizes. You can see I use this size specifically because this is the size that fits in all the dirt bike singles and Banshees and stuff like that. You need to plug up the motor. So you get an assortment of stuff from your local hardware store. I always use these PVC from the sprinkler aisle. You know, it's all for the irrigation. I buy different sizes to plug up different size intakes and exhaust. These are like 3840. These are stock. You can see I just wrapped some duct tape around them to make them fit a little tighter, keep them from leaking. These are for the big flange exhausts. These are for the stock 1.5. The big exhaust, big flange, 2-inch. Most of you will be with the 1.5. All right, let's get this plugged up and tested. Spark plug in one hole. Stock intake plugs, because he's running stock carburetors, or that about stock size, 26 to 28. Clamp these up real tight. The exhaust on. Put a little grease on this, helps it seal. Give it a little clamp, turn, get that seal seated. You don't want to do it too hard, it'll tear the seal, the O-ring. Couple it together. Get your sourced air. Set it to 6 to 8 pounds. This should already be preset. You adjust it here, get the pressure right, and then get this gauge set. You can zero it out or anywhere in this yellow here. And just let it set for a second. Looks like we're about 8 pounds on this one. And then we just let it set. 6 to 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. I don't like any bleed off at all. If there's any bleed off for me, I just take care of it. Now, if your gauge is bleeding off, you want to figure out where the air is coming out at. I use Windex. You can use soap and water. That'll work also. and you just spray all the mating surfaces. I usually start with where the plugs are at because a lot of times these things will start leaking. The intakes leak often right here. You can see I 3-bond them, so none of this should be leaking. A lot of times your spark plug area will leak, or common area, of course, is where you put these guys. See that? That's what a leak looks like. So I know I'm getting bleed off because my exhaust plug is leaking. Now, this usually means that I just didn't tighten it down good enough. So we'll give it a couple ratchets. And bam, it's gone. Commonly, you'll see base gaskets leak, but this motor's tight. I just wanted to demonstrate how you find a leak and what you can do to stop it. Of course, if it's not one of your plugs, spark plugs, one of these pieces, you will have to disassemble. 3-bond will keep everything from leaking. I always do the reeds here in the intake. I always take these boots, separate them from the aluminum intake, and 3-bond them. I let everything cure overnight, 24 hours. And then I will test. You can see the 3-bond around each one of these little nuts. Although these nuts won't leak because this is a water passage. This will only show internal engine where the fuel and air travel. This is not a water leak test. That you would have to plug up here and feed air into it. Plug here, say plug there, feed it in here, and then you can blow up the cooling area where all the water travels, and then you can tell if these are leaking. But this is internal for air and fuel passage, not water passages. We're going to do a squish test now. Squish test is just sticking a piece of solder down through the spark plug hole. Now, you have to buy the right size solder. This one is usually good for most applications. It's 62 thousandths thick. So if you're trying to get anywhere from the 40s to the 50s, this is fine. A lot of times you'll have a bigger squish. So I also have a 80 thousandths. I believe this one is. Somewhere around there. It's much, 113 gauge. Anyway, you can see the size difference. Yeah, so it says it's 113, I think, and yeah, it comes up about 115. Again, everybody's sizes are going to be a little bit different depending on how you measure and how much force you put down on it. So let's give this one a test. Now I already did this, so I know this 60 thousandths is just a little bit too thin for a reading. So I got the big one here and just put it in line with the wrist pin, and you spin the motor over. And you get a good squish. You see that? That works good for the camera, this thicker gauge. And then you come and then you put your caliper on it and get a reading. So this one is right about at the limit of the other one. The other solder says it's 62, and this one comes out to about that. So the squish, a little bit thicker on this one. That's a 20 thousandths base gasket. I always use 20 thousandths paper base gaskets. These are off the shelf domes. These aren't my custom cut ones. These are just off the shelf. So expect about a 60 thousandths squish in these. If you want it tighter, you can custom order them, or you can play with your gasket setup. But if you're trying to get exact durations, that's gonna make them differ just a little bit. But we're really splitting hairs here. Pump gas motor, this is fine. You want a bigger squish. Bigger squish is less heat. Less heat means more consistent horsepower. Now, drag racing will get the squish down real thin and tight. It'll make a lot of good power, but it heat soaks real quick, and the horsepower starts bleeding off as the motor, the combustion area gets hotter. You can keep the motor at a certain temperature in the water through the coolant, and you'll go, oh, it's fine, it's 180 degrees. But this combustion chamber will run hotter, and the horsepower will actually diminish. You see it on the dynos all the time. So don't knock a thicker squish, especially on pumped gas. This 91 in California is crap. I'm very comfortable with 60 to 70 thousandths squish with 130 to 140 PSI static.